Welcome to Chasing Dragonflies. Join us as we explore the glorious chaos of chasing life, only to discover the God of the universe is chasing us. I'm your host, Jane Foster, triplet mom and fellow sojourner in the land of motherhood. This is not a podcast about insects, and so if that's what you were hoping to find today, you are in the wrong spot. The name actually comes from watching my Labrador Retrievers, Lucy, who's our beautiful black lab, and Lilybell, our yellow lab, running around the backyard in the summertime in Texas chasing the dragonflies. And these dogs, they run, they jump, they dance, they strive for all of it to try and get a dragonfly. They chase them around the swimming pool and even land in the pool half the time. And they've never caught a dragonfly. And it just reminds me that this looks like a metaphor playing out in front of us about motherhood. My kids, if they ever hear this, will be rolling their eyes because they know of my love of the metaphor. But so many times we either strive to become moms or then to be the best mom that we can be. And whether you're struggling with potty training or launching a kid into college or teaching a kid driving lessons or learning spelling words, we all find that at some point we're doing the best we can and we just don't seem to be able to get what we want. Sometimes we end up in the deep end of the pool. And it's that part of our lives where we discover, hey, it's God calling us to draw closer to Him, to experience His presence. And in all of this, He's chasing us. Thank you so much. Sue Scheele is my first guest today on the very first episode of Chasing Dragonflies. I want to introduce my very dear friend to you. Sue is an entrepreneur. She has the largest bridal salon in the great city of Fort Worth, Texas. She is the owner of. She is the recipient of the Best of Weddings Award, Hall of Fame, awarded by theknot.com. If you're in the wedding realm, then you would be very familiar with that. So I want to introduce her to you and just let you hear from her and let her tell you who she is and where she came from.
Woohoo, first podcast.
Yeah, we made it, Sue.
We made it. Well, I'm so glad to be here, Jane, and I hope that this episode just helps one mom out there or a few to just know that, hey, I'm not as out there as I thought I was.
Yes, that's the point, just to encourage moms. Tell me about you. Where'd you grow up? How'd you end up in this neck of the woods?
I grew up in the military. My dad was in the U.S. Army, and so we traveled a lot. And I went to school in Oklahoma State, which is where my dad retired in Fort Sill. And then after studying speech pathology and taking a few back roads with my college plans, I moved to Austin, Texas to take my first corporate job. And there I met my husband. We met through a mutual friend. He grew up in the Hill Country area, but his job brought us to Mansfield. So we moved to Mansfield. I had a bridal store in Austin, tried to keep it going as I opened a second location here in Mansfield. And this is home.
Just moved everything here.
Yes, and it's such a great community for families, and it's funny how Austin was a great chapter for us as newlyweds and getting our career up and going. And now this has been a wonderful place to raise a family, but still close to home and family.
Mom of two?
Mom of two. I had a boy first and a girl, and feel very overwhelmed to have two healthy babies, and they're 12 and 10. So close in age. They are very close, and we have all the chaotic troubles that everyone has.
That you would expect,
yes,
certainly.
But it's going well, and just so thankful that they're healthy and doing well.
Sure. I want Sue to tell you about finding her gift. I will tell you this about Sue. When I first met Sue, I thought that she could describe herself better than anyone that I had ever met. Normally, when you get to know people, our kids were in elementary school together was how we first met. So you're trying to make connections with people, and you end up saying, okay, what what's your day look like? What's your day job? What are your hobbies? Just trying to find cross connections. And I thought Sue defined herself better than anybody I've met. Sometimes we can maybe make ourselves bigger than we ought or make ourselves smaller than we ought just from our own insecurities. And Sue could tell me, this is what I was born to do. This is a gift I received, and then this is what I've done with it. And I thought, wow, I so admire that, and I want to eventually raise kids that can do that too. Would you tell us about discovering your gift in college?
Most people that sew or do any kind of home economics, they figure that out in elementary, maybe high school, junior high. But I did not know that I had this ability until I was studying speech pathology. I had a part-time job on campus, and I worked for a workroom that did drapery, blinds, shutters. But mostly they had me working in the sewing area where I did bedding and all the soft goods. So I was sewing with a lot of women that were triple my age, and they just really encouraged me and showed me things, and I did have a natural ability for it. And they just commented a lot that they don't see a lot of people in my generation that are coordinated or just have that passion for it and want to work through it to get on the other side of the frustration of learning to sew. And that really encouraged me. I was terrified to tell my parents that maybe speech pathology wasn't for me, because I continued with that. And I did 2 internships in the summer and had no plans of changing my career path. I just thought this would be something I would do on the side. But it was interesting how the humbling experience of speech pathology and figuring out my path there versus this growth and passion that I had for the creative side of my brain, and the encouragement and the positive experiences I seem to have with working on any project, that just made me realize, okay, I may just have to figure out a way to sneak this in. And so I found it nice on campus. There were sororities that did song and dance shows twice a year, so they would pay somebody to make their costumes or whatever, and they didn't have to be perfect. So it was just the perfect atmosphere for me to learn. I was able to use the basement of the Chi Omega house on campus, and my house mom sewed. So she just thought it was so wild that this girl in the house of 152 women wanted to use the basement to sew. It was musty and wet and moldy down there, and I set up a little shop. I had a couple of machines, and I started practicing on these costumes that didn't have to be perfect. And then year by year, after doing so many of those, and my friends would come down, the house mom would come down, see what I was working on, and it just started that way and just grew. So I did eventually get a 5th year and just did apparel design in addition to speech pathology, and did not get my master's in speech path. So that's how it started. And I knew nothing going into all of that other than my Spanish teacher, my senior year of high school, showed me how to work my machine, and just kind of encouraged me to get a machine. And then I was able to use that machine as I was working. And now here I am, that little machine that I got with my Spanish high school teacher, it led to a career.
I love that you mentioned having a training ground to be able to work on costumes, and with the freedom of it didn't have to be perfect, that it was a place just to learn and grow and practice your craft without the barriers of this has to be sale worthy the first time. What was that like for you in that experience of practicing and learning?
Invaluable. If you can find somebody to pay you to practice your way through some sort of thing, I mean, how brilliant was that? Back then, of course, we didn't have YouTube and all the things that we have now. That would have been so nice. My YouTube was my house mom that was probably in her late 70s, who was a quilter. And then these ladies that were just so encouraging. And it's kind of to your point of somebody finding this thing about you that maybe you don't see, and then they nurture that, and then you start to question all of your life choices, and then finally embrace this thing that people are noticing about you, even though it's so far-fetched, and maybe there's some fear behind it, like there was for me. I had great parents, but they were afraid of me having to eat ramen noodles the rest of my life, not being able to make it in a creative atmosphere, and maybe allied health was more stable for me. So there's that, just having somebody recognizing this and nurturing that in me, and then being able to practice, because these weren't formals and perfect things. These were costumes that they would wear one time, and they needed somebody to execute this vision they had, and there I was. And they really enjoyed having a student that was making these costumes. I noticed that as I went along, they would win best costume, and they'd say, oh, well, there was this sophomore who's at the university that made all these. And it's like, that was another layer of interest for the groups that were performing. So it was a really neat thing that just started with these women encouraging me to, unfolding what God had already put there.
Anybody specific in that time frame? Because you mentioned a Spanish teacher, house mom, other people along the way. Anybody specific that it's like the conversation is etched in your brain, where they were able to say something at a specific time that really resonated with your heart to call this out in you?
Well, I definitely would say all of them. My Spanish teacher was the one that said, this was back in the 90s where you could do this, but my Spanish teacher said, hey, you can come to my house if your dad or parents will allow you, and you can get a machine and come over to my house, and I will spend several days teaching you how to work a machine, like how that machine works. So my dad bought me this machine. So I always give credit to my dad, who's my late father, who would just be so blown away that machine that he got me in high school would be, the way I make my living now. And it inspires other people my age. So then I have my high school senior, I have my high school Spanish teacher, and then I also have the owner of the drapery company to thank. She really encouraged me so much. I did so many installs with her, just one-to-one, and she sewed with me so much one-to-one because it was, I guess, just it worked out that way. And she had other people that did other things, but the newbie, being able to help her more in new ways, that was the core. And then I had my house mom, who I lived with for 4 or 5 years, if you count my 5th year. And she, Mom Dottie, just always looking at what I was sewing on in the basement, and allowing me to go to her area too on the weekends and see what she was quilting. So all those ladies that sewed, they all happened to be similar age group, and I would say all of them, including my dad.
Just poured into you at different steps along the way. So I want to talk about, because I know this is dear to your heart and to mine, just in raising kids, because the people that you're entrusted with raising, and you can pick out things. You've got a daughter and a son who are very different. You can tell from a young age that they have different talents, different skills. Just becomes very obvious that they're created differently. What are some ways that you and your family have tangibly tried to call those out and tried to encourage those things?
It helps that I can call back on my experiences with this whole sewing thing. And what those ladies did was just very simple. Just, oh, you're really good at this. Did you know that you're really good at this? Just, that was the message. It was a singular message that anyone can send, but that was it. It was, it's like when you find out the recipe is 3 ingredients and you're like, well, I could have been making that all along. And it's so simple. Just that question of, wow, you're really good at this. And look what you just did. Nobody does that. And then, do you see that? And then it just ended up growing from there. But so I try to make it that simple so that I can remember to say those things, because we can all make a 3-ingredient recipe.
Yes.
So, just noticing, oh, wow, Ava, you're really good at this, and then calling that out. You're really good at this. See, you just did that, and see how naturally easy that was for you, and look how well you do it. And then later on, do you see that? And, oh, wow, Henry, look how easily you can do this thing. And that's really what it took for me, and it really should work for anyone if it worked for me.
So you're describing just planting seeds of confidence and of recognition, but then also being very intentional about that, because you can observe something about somebody next to you and never open your mouth, never speak it into being, but being intentional about encouraging, pointing those things out. I know in our family, I try to make it clear to our kids that if you've got a talent, if you've got a gift, then the point of it is that God gives that to you to glorify Him and bless other people. And I know a lot of times that gets challenging in families, because if you've got more than one kiddo, sibling rivalry is always present.
Always.
And I have triplets, so they're all the same age, and so they're all taking the same math class. They're all learning the same skills a lot of times at the same time, all learning how to ride a bike at the same time. So it's easy to look at somebody else and make a judgment about yourself, for better or for worse, based off of what somebody else is doing. But it's that recognition that this is how I'm made, and planting those seeds and watering them, I think, is what you're describing here.
Oh, yes.
What has helped you with managing that with kiddos, with different talents, and even sometimes different desires, with helping them to see how they're uniquely made, versus comparing with each other?
The key for me has been a little one-to-one time with both of them. And so it's not always a lot of time or planned, but, openly, publicly, in front of the four of us, making those simple statements so that we all know that we have our own singular gifts, or maybe they're same, but we have them. And then privately getting that intentional time of getting them to open up maybe about those questions, and thinking about just a soft, natural flow of conversation. And that's where I'm looking for them to open up, maybe share about, were there things that you were struggling with on this, or that you've been working on or doing. And then depending on their personalities, if they have a big personality versus a more quiet personality, and that's been very successful for me to get them to open up. And then I can build on that, and figuring out, well, okay, Christmas is coming around, or there's a birthday, and they shared this thing with me, and then I can try to be thoughtful about what activities they're doing, or things that we're purchasing, or people that we can connect them with, just anything like that. So that has helped a lot, just trying to get that one-to-one time to get them to talk and build on that.
I know for us, before our kids went to kindergarten, in a lot of ways that was the first launching, because in our family that would be the first time that they were away from home more hours than at home. In spite of going to preschool programs and all those good things, it would be the largest number of hours a day and in a week. And so it was important for us to be able to help them know a little bit of their identity, kind of that first launch going out in the world, and to be able to call them by name and have them say, this is something special about me, something I know I can do. One of my sons, we started calling the builder fixer when he was probably about 2, because you can just see, has that engineering kind of brain, wants to know how things are made, wants to take it apart, put it back together. So he was helping me change light bulbs and batteries when he was 4. He could handle a screwdriver. Wow. And so for him, it was being able to call him by name and say, I need your help with this because you're really good at this. And you're actually better at this than Mom because I don't have those spatial skills. So being able to name that in him. My daughter has the least natural fear of anybody that I've ever met. And it's really tenderhearted. So we started calling her the brave heart of our family, which I think offended the boys a bit. To say that she's the bravest, but to be able to call on her for that and say, you're really good at that, and I like watching you do this. It gives me courage to try hard things that I might be afraid of. Got another boy that it's an intangible, trying to figure out, okay, how do you explain to this kid what's inside him that's special? I remember observing him at a public pool, probably around 5, and asking the lifeguard, can we do a cannonball contest? And the lifeguard says, well, if you can get enough kids interested. And he went around and probably invited 50 kids to come line up for the cannonball contest. And I just ended up saying to him, I mean, that's the spark. A spark gets things going. And so he's the gets things going kind of kid. So there are moments where we'll say, we need a spark in here to do this. We need your gift. We need your skill to fill this special moment. So playing off of what you're saying, just being able to notice and call it out and then invite them into those spaces that helps them grow in that. Tell me about the challenge of growing a thriving business and getting all this going and being a newly married woman and adding kiddos in there. What has that balance been like of being able to swirl all those plates at the same time? I'm sure it's changed with different stages.
Yes. So in the beginning, the timing for me definitely played in my favor since I started the bridal shop as a single woman, which may not be the popular way to do it, but since all of this kind of came together by accident, it started there with getting things established on my own, but I was dating Zach, so we were together. And then from there, I feel like I went through the hard years as a single person or as a newlywed. And then Zach was getting his master's at that time, so that helped being a newlywed. And then he was getting his, his master's, so we didn't see each other as much. So that helped with the timing. And then from there, I went through those tough years in that atmosphere. So bringing on kids, we waited 5 years to have kids. And by then, I felt established. I had a great team, and my team really had been there a long time. So I could go away and take a maternity leave or just adjust my schedule. And those folks really, I couldn't have done it without them. So I did have 2 locations. One of them I took on in Fort Worth that was already established. So all the ladies, I called them the Golden Girls, but they were probably an average age of 65 years old, all the way up to 80. One of them had their 80th birthday party. So you can imagine just having a great group like that took me to the next level. And so I just I guess it's all about timing and the people that you surround yourself with. And so they pretty much took me through motherhood as a group of women ages 65 to 80. And we had younger ladies on the team as well, but they were the core group that were from the previous owners. So I did have 2 locations with 2 kids. And then once my lease was up with the Mansfield store, that's when Henry was going into kindergarten. And that's when I met you. The timing of that was right before the pandemic, so I felt so fortunate that God just put that there as like, okay, you did your 10 years. Are you going to renew this? And they wanted, they usually like to see a 5-year commitment. And I just didn't feel like I needed to push any like that. And a lot of people have said, as you get older, your kids are going to be more demanding of your time. So I just followed that and let go of that second one. But when you're in it, it's so hard, especially if you're passionate about something, it's hard to let it go because it does feel like a member of the family. But so glad that worked out. And then during the pandemic, that would have been just terrifying to have 2 stores during that time.
Trying to manage.
Yes. So now that they're older, it's interesting. I feel so strange, because they are busier, and right now I'm working less, and so my team is definitely doing so much more. But a lot of those have moved on, and the pandemic escalated that because, as you can imagine, women of that age during the pandemic, there was a lot that they had to consider, and so I did lose a lot of teammates through that. So now we've scaled back, and that's actually been a great thing. At first it feels scary and like you've lost some of your success, but then everything just kind of calibrates and you find a new success. And I feel like I'm back to the start where I actually get to see brides. I get to meet with them face to face. I get to do the thing that I actually love at the machine, and I'm solving less problems. Not that my team was in the business of creating problems, but problems naturally happen when you have a lot of volume moving through your building. And so now I'm doing more of what God intended me to do, which is sewing and, leading, hopefully teaching others how to sew as well, and knowing that they have this gift too. And that's what I spend more of my time doing, but I'm doing less time in the store because it is more demanding. So I feel very fortunate that I did the grind, and then the timing worked out for me, and I had great people. So now I can lose less of my mind.
Yes. So you're describing the grind in the early years and getting established and starting from nothing, and then even moving from locations,
Yes.
starting in Austin and then moving and having two, and then consolidating to one location. And I'm hearing a theme of work, of being able to work and be steadfast in that. And I'm reminded of Ecclesiastes 2 talking about, it's a really smart guy, wrote Ecclesiastes, King Solomon, who is known to be the wisest, and talks a lot about things in life being meaningless. And when I read that, I think about mopping your floor and then having your kid open the back door and run through with muddy shoes and the dog with muddy paws following him. When I read about meaningless, because I think about all the tasks that we do, and then you look and go, oh, I get to do that again. But the bottom line that he concludes in all of this is that what makes life meaningful is being able to delight in the work of our hands, that's a gift from God, is being able to just delight in that. And I'm hearing a theme from you of both very hard work, but then also delight in being able to use this gift, being able to create a business that blesses your family and others, a fellowship with other women that have been mentors with you, and coworkers along the way. What are some things that you do to try to instill those qualities in your kids about learning how to work and then learning how to appreciate the results of their labor in that?
It's so funny to talk about this because this is a tricky one for me. I grew up in a household where, we didn't have a lot of the things that Zach and I have now, and Zach and I having the stability and the timing that I was just talking about, where we did put those years in, and it's like, how do we make them feel this that we both felt in our childhood? And so, a lot of it is just has helped through conversation and maybe just sharing more of our story of why it's important to us for them to understand what hard work feels like and why it's going to set them apart when times are tough. Mm-hmm. But it is difficult for us because we can just go out and do and run, and then time goes by and we're like, oh no, they're 10 and 12, mm-hmm. and do they even have a work ethic? Mm-hmm. So I know this might seem really simple, but just making lists for them has been successful for us. Just thinking back, because this has been a struggle, mm-hmm. Making lists of things that they need to do and with no expectation of payment or, it's just these are the things that you need to be able to do at this age. And they're not fun things. They're, just all chore related. Mm-hmm. Just walking them through, why we're doing this and what this is going to help them accomplish as an adult. And then really just giving them chores. It's hard because none of their friends are, maybe they're not having to do chores and then they're comparing, but maybe their friends aren't talking about those chores. And I know that they're doing them. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, well, no one does this. And why are we being punished this way? Mm-hmm. But then those conversations help. It's a tricky one, mm-hmm. but that's helped me, just talking about it. And when they compare to what they think is happening, mm-hmm. just really trying to walk through it with our story and why it's helping them. And then just lists. Just yesterday we had to make a nice little list on mm-hmm. this is what you're doing on Sunday before school starts after a holiday week. And do you remember the last time you did a chore? No, because we were on vacation. Mm-hmm. And so, it's not fun to do all these things, but they're now doing them more without a lot of back talk. And I think they may start to understand now that, okay, this is where mom and dad came from, and look at what this work ethic can do for me. And then, being in sports too, they understand, okay, you're doing it in sports, so now bring it home and do it at the kitchen sink and in the laundry room
Carry it
and
over.
outside, God forbid you walk the dogs today. And, they're little and they're doing their best, but it is getting better. So this has been a struggle for me. And one day you realize, oh, wow, time is going fast. And am I giving them this, or are we just expecting that this just happens for everybody?
Right.
So yeah, I'm open to learning on this one too.
I think we're all learning together on it. We added on to our house in 2021, and original part of the house built in the early 90s, so you're not going to find the brick. The original brick doesn't exist anymore. So then you're looking for, okay, can we find a brick that is a similar size and texture so that we could just paint the old part, paint the new part, and it look uniform, like it belongs together. So, of course, this is 2021, and still in the aftermath of COVID, still continuing on. So hard to find building materials, takes a long time to get them, and it's more expensive than you would have originally budgeted. So, of course, our brick comes in July, the hottest month in Texas. And my husband, Troy, grew up laying brick with his dad and started going to work with him at age 8. And so some of what you're talking about, your story being different than the life your kids have experienced, or even your husband's, just recognizing we've got a pack of 8-year-olds here that don't know what it's like to labor in the sun. Let's give them that experience. And so Troy just decided we're going to do the brick as a family for the new part of the house in July. And we're going to learn how to stack brick, and we're going to mix the mortar, and he's going to be the master bricklayer, but he's going to teach us how to strike the joints and all the different build scaffolds and all the different parts of this. And let me just say, it was not met with an extreme amount of enthusiasm. There was bickering, there was whining, there was complaining. The fruit of that, after all the frustration and the toil and the sweat and the Gatorade, is that we did it, and we've got pictures of the last brick that was laid, and just to be able to take pictures throughout that process, and I've still got them up on the refrigerator in that section, but to be able to see. We did this. We did this as a family, and we didn't have to enjoy every moment of the work. That's why it's called work. It's not vacation. But being able to see the results of your efforts and the fruit of that, and just trying to plant those seeds that this is what we do in this family. We work hard, and then we accomplish great things.
You built a lot of character.
We're trying, brick by brick. We're trying to build character. Not fun, not pleasant, but what you're talking about, being intentionally having to make those lists, having to say, well, your friends might be playing video games all afternoon, or at least they're telling.
That's what you think.
At least they're telling you
yes.
that. But in our house, this is how we're going to move forward in these things.
That's cool that you have those pictures. We have a couple pictures on the wall from Zach's grandpa or great-grandpa or something doing similar things. And we always say, look, the photos don't lie. You come from a long line of hardworking people
yes.
on both sides. You can't deny it.
Yes. No, I think that's good. I think that's a good gift to give them, to remind them. Thanks for being such a blessing to the world.
Thank you.
All right. First episode of Chasing Dragonflies signing off. See you next time. Thank you for joining us, friends.